So this morning we'll hear from some insights from Professor Laurie Buys about the QUT Senior Living Innovation Research Project. So many of us at DMA have attended photo events in the past that have been hosted by Thomson Adset and other industry friends, and we've always found them to be interesting and insightful, and today will be no different from that. We've also found it to be a great opportunity to catch up with friends of past and also to create new friends, as everybody has done this morning, and it's great to see everybody mingling and to get to know each other a little bit better. So today we're really thrilled to be able to host the photo event. When it came to setting about to choose a topic for today, it didn't take us at all long to decide that the focus of retirement living and aged care would be relevant and of interest to the group. It's a sector that DMA and a lot of us here today have worked in for many years, and in our case many years, a few decades, probably more than a few decades. And it's an industry that we find no doubt challenging but rewarding, and it's one that DMA, and I'm sure a lot of people here as well, have a strong interest in understanding where it's trending in the future. The sector has experienced a lot of change. I think we'd all agree that the projects that we work on today are a whole lot different to what they were, say, 10 years ago. And jobs, 10 years in the future and beyond, no doubt will be even further different again. Innovation, technology advances, and changes in community and resident expectations will no doubt have an impact on where things will trend in the immediate and near future. And that's not to mention some of the emerging technologies that we're starting to see glimpses of today that are going to see us track in possibly a totally different direction. As we hear so often, change as we see it today is really nothing like we're going to see in the future. Everybody says it's only going to get more common and change to a greater rate. And I don't see that retirement living and aged care is going to be any different in that front, particularly as we see generations of people roll through. Community expectations are going to be even more different from what they are today. So Professor Buys is someone who knows a lot about the innovation, or what innovation in retirement living and aged care might look like, which is why I've asked her to come along and speak to us today. Laurie is the leader of QUT's Institute for Future Environments, Infrastructure for Sustainable Communities theme, and professor in the School of Design in the Creative Industry Faculty. I got ahead of myself. I thought, this is going to tie my tongue all up. And I started to get ahead, and I thought, I'm through it, and I bungled it. Industries Faculty. Laurie is also the Director of Senior Living Innovation, which is an industry research collaboration. His ultimate goal is to create great communities and living environments for future seniors. Laurie is also an international scholar with over 170 academic publications. So please join with me in welcoming Laurie to give her presentation.
Thanks, Russell. I'm absolutely thrilled to be here today. Thank you to DMA and Thomson Adset for inviting me. It's a great opportunity to connect with you guys and to hear also, hopefully during question and answer, we can talk about what's relevant and what's important for the industry. Just to start, because I'm a researcher, I start with questions. So who in here identifies as an adult? Yeah? Who in here identifies as old? Who in here works in the retirement, has something to do with retirement living? Working in sort of either in any services or whatever. Most people? Who in here lives in a retirement village? Okay, so in this room we have adults who do not live in retirement villages. And we're thinking about planning for people who are old and who live in retirement villages. We're just starting with that. So, okay, that's what we're planning for the other. Okay, I'll ask one more question. Who in here is planning to have in their housing career, how many of you plan and have picked out your retirement village? Exactly. Okay, exactly. So we'll start with that. So we're going to talk about, I was asked to talk about what seniors want now and into the future. So I want to start by acknowledging the Senior Living Innovation Partners, Aveo, Ballycara, and Bolton Clark. They are partners with QUT who have come on a journey of taking a different look at the industry. So they've been very brave, which is exciting. We did some work. We did 3 different research projects, all national projects. One was around social media mapping, one was online community forum, and one was the Insta booth. So the one that I'm going to talk about, really about 2 of them, the online community forum and also the Insta booth, but tie in the social media a little bit. The online community forum, we actually talked to people aged from 55 to 95 for a week, all over Australia, from all different socioeconomic backgrounds, male and female. It was the most beautiful sample you've ever seen. The only trouble, it wasn't random, but it was actually fantastic. It was a great sample, and we had them for a week just talking about life and things. So what did they say? What they said was that work-life balance is important for everyone. Let me repeat that. Work-life balance. Okay? And when work-life balance was out of kilter, there was a huge amount of distress. When there was too much leisure, there was distress. When there was too much work, there was distress. They needed that complete balance, same as everybody probably in this room. They talked about occupation. Okay? Occupation includes employment, but it's a bit broader. Because all of us have occupation. It's the things that we do that are valued by other people. So it incorporates full-time work, it incorporates part-time work, it incorporates casual, but it also includes your pro bono work that you do. You all do pro bono, and pro bono are jobs that would probably normally be done for pay, but we do them not for pay. Now we don't classify those as volunteering, do we? They're pro bono. But if you're 65 and you do something pro bono, we actually call it volunteering. But it's not. It's actually pro bono. Change the way you think about it. Volunteering, in the way they talked about it, was the sausage sizzle and so forth. What they wanted and what they talked about were their occupations in the community outside their home that were valued by others. So think about it more in that pro bono space other than barbecue or Lamington Cell. They talked about leisure, but only as a part-time activity. It wasn't their lifestyle. So leisure was something like, I go to the gym for an hour a day. I don't go to the gym for 25 hours a day in my 24-hour day work. You know, leisure was leisure. It was just something that was a hobby that they did. They actually talked about home occupation. So their gardening was important to them, taking care of their house, just keeping up with the day-to-day work that we all do in our house. So they talked about the importance of that. And they also talked about relationships with family and friends. Relationships were very important. And relationships were in the community and with others. So those relationships were primary in the minds of those folks. And they talked about it in various different contexts. So what does this mean? It means that occupation actually equals value. So if you don't have occupation, you've got no value. Okay? And it's true. You have to think about it. If someone you see is just sitting around doing absolutely nothing, and they might be a teenager, we're kind of like, get off your backside. Do something. You know, we don't put up with it. So we value people who have occupation, and when we have occupation, we value ourselves. So they actually equate occupation with value, and value is primary in the minds of people from 55 to 95. A holiday is just that. It's a holiday. Holiday is not a lifestyle. Okay? A resort is a holiday. It is not a lifestyle. People wanted to go on holiday for a week or 2 weeks, but then they wanted to get back to their occupation, to their lifestyle. There was a significant discussion about the value of reciprocal relationships, relationships that go back and forth. It's how we take care of people and people take care of us. There's all sorts of different reciprocal relationships, but it's that give and take that makes you human, that makes you valuable, that makes you part of a community, part of a family. So when you stop giving that reciprocal relationship, you actually stop having those relationships. One-way relationships don't work. And care in the traditional sense is a one-way relationship. That is not a reciprocal relationship. Okay? A multi-generational community. There was significant talk about the importance of being part of a community that's vibrant, that has kids, that has teenagers, that has families, that has older people. It has vibrancy about it. It's about people, and it has all different kinds of people from different backgrounds. These people did not want to live in a community that was all the same. There was a significant value of diversity. They also wanted to stay in the community because community networks. They wanted to connect with people at the shops. They wanted the bus drivers, their neighbors, everyone that you connect with every day. Think about it. It's around those connections, those formal and informal connections that people wanted to maintain within their churches or within their bowls club or within their, this group here. It's about how do you connect with those people. And important for you guys is about vibrant urban environments. Vibrant urban environments are places that are exciting. They're cool to be in. You want to be, they're places that are just sizzling with excitement. You want to be, It's like walking through South Bank when all the stuff at Christmas is happening. It's cool, it's fun. You feel like you're part of, something bigger. That's what they wanted to be part of. Everyone wanted to be part of really, things that are happening so you felt like you were, it's exciting. So what did they say about retirement and the word retired? So occupational title. Retirement is basically the same, retired or retirement is kind of the same thing as I'm a teacher or I'm a professor. It was just a job title, okay? So you guys might be an architect or you're a civil engineer. That was the same thing as, it was just a job title. So yes, they used the word retired. Then there's occupational description. So what is the description of retired? Really how they used it was just as an identifier. So if I say to you that I'm a professor and someone else says to me they're a professor, we kind of connect because you immediately know that we're an academic. We immediately know that we kind of research. There's immediately things that you know. So again, if you're an architect and you meet an architect, you kind of connect. So if you meet someone who's retired and someone who's retired, it's just a connector. It is not a description of withdrawing. It's just a connector. It's a job title. It just lets you know kind of their status, and that's it. Then, if you ask them what they do, so if I'm a professor, that doesn't tell you what I do, does it? So your next question is going to be, well, what do you do? So, if you ask people who are retired, and you ask them what they do, they're going to talk about all the activities that they're doing, their valued occupations, all the things that are going on in their life, the connections, the vibrancy. That's what they do. So that does not equal retired and withdrawn. Okay? So, why should you care about that? Because the meaning of retirement is not withdrawing at all. It is purely just a status, like architect, designer. So how did the group of 50 to 65, they saw it a little bit different. They saw retirement, you can't read that, I'll read it. It's basically an escape from the mundane, everyday working life or pressures of their current job, or an extended holiday as a utopian lifestyle, as a sign of making it so they no longer need you don't need an income. So basically, how many of you, when you're sitting at your desk, and we all have those days which you just like, I have had it with this. I'm sick of it. I can't wait to retire. And what you're saying is, I just want to do something different at this point in time. You're not actually saying that, it's really just I can't wait till I don't have to deal with this admin, or I don't have to wait till this client is just driving me nuts. That's how the 65 to 50 to 65, it was an excuse. It was just a way of escaping. It was just a utopian thing. It was just the way they thought about it. So over 65, the way they thought about it was basically just around their daily occupation, their daily activities. And again, it's not about withdrawing. It was just their life and their routine and the things that they did. Same as you guys now have a routine of life. That's how they saw retirement. It wasn't anything different. This is actually, our findings are very similar. I don't know whether you've seen this. This is called the environmental press. Lawton Powell did this many years ago, and our findings kind of came right into what he was talking about. On this axis, we've actually got competence. So that's my competence as a person. So it's my social competence, my cognitive, my physical, and so all my different kinds of competence. Along here is you've got your environmental press, and what that means is that that's your environment, like your physical environment, your social environment, your spiritual environment, cultural, so forth. So what he's saying is that if you have low competence and a weak environment, that there's different outcomes for that. So in the zone of maximum comfort, it means that your competence matches quite well with your environment, which means that you have challenges. It means that you have interesting things happening and vibrancy in your life. If you want your maximum potential, your performance potential, that's when you're challenged. You're challenged to step up and really push yourself that bit further, okay? And don't you feel good about yourself when you do that? It's kind of like when you think you can't do a task, you think some project's kind of not really what you can do, but you get there and you do it. That's your zone of maximum potential. You do it, you step up, and it's fantastic. That's when you feel really great about yourself, and that's your zone of maximum performance. Then you've got your comfort, which is probably your everyday. When you're doing your jobs, you're confident, you're just doing it, you're comfortable, but you're being challenged, What happens once you come over here is when and I'll put this quite bluntly, when your environment is boring, when there's no challenges. We thrive on challenges, we thrive on things being interesting and making sense of it and doing stuff. This is actually when your environment is way too easy. And this is when your environment is way too hard. Okay? So today, let's just imagine you walk out of here, you go back to your desk, and you know what? Everyone says to you, sweetheart. And they'll use the word sweetheart, and darling, take a rest. Take a rest. No more emails, let me handle them. No more meetings, let me handle them. You sit there at your desk and relax. You go home and your partner, your family says, darling, sweetheart, you relax. You sit there, watch TV all evening, I'll do everything for you. How long are you going to last? You going to last an hour? You going to last a day? You going to last a week? Trust me. This is what happens when people are bored. They start behaving very badly. It's not good. Anybody got teenagers? Have you ever seen bored teenagers? What do? They behave very badly. If you have any person who's seriously bored, who doesn't have occupation, they don't have exciting things happening, they're not doing things that are meaningful, they're not achieving, they behave very badly. On the other thing, the side too, when your environment's too hard, you've got too much work, things are just too hard, you can't manage it, again, you behave badly. Or you just give up. You stop. You just don't do it. So either way, you behave badly or you give up and you stop. And that's what happens when your environment is either too easy or too hard. So if you have a look down here, down the low, even if you've got very, very low competence, you still need some environmental excitement to even live, to happen. So even people who have very low competence need a stimulating environment. Okay. And that's about relevance and value. So our environments have to be creating places where we feel valued, places where we can continue our lifestyle and continue to be part of something bigger than just ourselves. So, the way industry thinks about and uses the term retirement is very different to the way older people think and use the term retirement. Very, very different. We asked our folks about retirement villages, and they didn't want to talk about it. We could actually only get 10 people out of the 100 to even talk about it. They just wouldn't even talk about it. So and the ones that did basically said that the community's perception of retirement villages is directly in line with the traditional meaning of retirement as a place to withdraw. So you walk through those gates and you're done. So retirement villages are absolutely seen as withdrawal villages. They're places that you go when you're fearful of the outside world and you need to feel secure within the gates of a village. So you need that security, you need that security blanket. So people that are feeling insecure, for whatever reason, they're feeling very insecure. Or care villages. So those who need or want a high level of care, and they're probably moving towards death. And that's how they see their life, that they're moving towards death. So they'll go into a place that can care for them, look after them, and they can live out their days there. Or the frat house, because I'm American, you can hear it in my voice. It's the whole frat house thing that we go for those who want to live the holiday social life with people just like them. Okay? So, industry is building exactly that. I just took pictures off the net, the first ones that came up. These are the pictures. You can see the gates, you can see the walls, they're all there. Keep me safe, care for me. These are the images. You Google older people, and if you're lucky, you get to be helped out by pretty young things, but if you're really lucky, you get to sit and have scones. I'm excited, I don't know about you. Or there's lots of friends. You can do aerobics, you can do water things, you can play cards. It's really cool. Have you ever seen an entrepreneurial business center in a retirement village? Just saying. How many of you have seen this graph? How many times have you seen it? 300,000 times. This is where the industry goes, you know what? Oh my gosh, look how many old people we're going to have. We're going to have a bunch of them. Yippee, party time. So what we then do is we go, you know what? Our view of old people is that everyone who hits 80 is exactly like everyone else before them that's 80. So your 80-year-olds all behave in exactly the same way. So as an industry, we've developed, and we've actually developed a theory. There's a theory that came out about in the 1950s, and we haven't changed it, although we say we have, but we haven't. It was called disengagement theory. And disengagement theory was about that older people, when they hit retirement age, 65, were meant to withdraw and pass on their jobs, pass on their roles to young people, and that kept the whole world moving. We haven't stepped away from that. If you look at any media, they'll tell you the burden of the baby boomers, the greedy baby boomers are housing and all this sort of stuff. So we have built that 65 here. Once you get there, there's a whole lot of assumptions that we have held as truth for a very long time. And they are, industry assumptions are that leisure activities are what people over 65 want and do. So at 65, you take a little check, you walk out the door, and your life is leisure, holiday, woohoo. We then say that getting health and healthcare service is the key focus for 65. You can't hardly find anything about people over 65 without bumping into health. It's all about, before you're 65, it's all about productivity, it's about your contributions to society. After 65, it's all health. So all of a sudden, a birthday, you go from being a productive citizen to a burden on the health system. And people over 65 want to live in a resort where they feel safe. Everybody wants to feel safe and where they can manage their homes. There's also the assumption that there are a lot of them. Yes, there might be a lot of them. And most are the same. They're like-minded. A quick Google will tell you that older people are all like-minded. And that if you build it, they will come. Because there's so many of them. Which is, an amazing assumption. Now, I want to challenge you that I put here that you've got data, which is demographic data. Okay, yes, there's more people. But demographic data does not indicate want or need. They're two separate things. There's significant difference between cohorts and cohort wants and cohort needs. And if you ask this question with these assumptions, which a lot of marketing do, you will get the answers that give you the one above. If you ask data about want and need in a different way, you will get very, very different answers. So Aveo and Ballycara and Bolton Clark and QUT, we've got a proposal in to actually look at data sets and ask different questions. Not actually what leisure activities do they do, but more what occupations do they do. So it's a very different question. But I argue that this is what has been driving the industry and the assumptions that are driving the industry. So we get things, and this is in Canada, so I'm not commenting on anybody internally here. This is one that's just recently opened. It's got fine dining, a bistro, a club room, a fitness center, a salon, a spa, and outdoor spaces that include a patio, a fireplace overlooking a pond. Down here is a 5-star restaurant, which is fantastic. Over here, the innovation is this walkway. This walkway tells you everything because it doesn't show you what this goes to, does it? If this walkway goes to a university, it tells you the expectation that these people here are going to go to university and can contribute. If this walkway here goes to a business or an entrepreneurial space, it tells you the expectations of these guys that they're going to go and work and contribute and go for. If this workplace goes to a hospital, it tells you that this is a waiting room to see who actually goes across to the hospital. So the families can wait, not in a waiting room, but in a 5-star restaurant. And I reckon there's going to be people watching to see who crosses that bridge in the morning and who doesn't come back. This is, in fact, goes to a hospital. It goes to a hospital. So you might as well put back here another one that goes to the crematorium. Just saying, make it easy. Because the expectation of that design is that these people are looking at the hospital, and that's what their expectations are. This is from Australia. I Googled retirement living. This is the first one that came up. So sorry, Ardesi Aruna. But just here, we've got a community of like-minded neighbors. Every need is met. Design, service, security, and care, along with the peace of mind that comes from living in complete comfort within a safe and supportive environment. We will take care of you and do everything for you. You don't need occupation. You're going to be on holiday. That's what the industry is selling. And that's what you're designing for at the moment. So why should you care? Because me time or time to relax or let us care for you translates loud and clear to you are no longer capable or productive and you are no longer of value. So these are just word clouds. And so the messages we are sending are care equals deterioration and burden. Leisure equals entertainment. We're going to entertain you the whole time and you're of no value because really what you need to do is play golf or swim or, beautiful photos of walking on the beach. And security is that you're not capable and there's a reason for you to feel fearful. So what does this mean? It means that the design of retirement villages, including the gates and the walls and all the marketing that goes around it, And the social activities offered give a clear message of withdrawing and leading a holiday, leisure lifestyle, and that is not what people want. It might be wanted by 4% of the people, which is what we're getting at the moment. The rest of them do not want that lifestyle because, do you ever see WALL-E? This is the message that what we're building and what we're supplying sends today. What people want, what the 95% of people who are over 65 want, the assumptions is that according to our data, many of the assumptions underpinning the retirement designs are incorrect and inaccurate. Because what people want is absolutely vibrant places. They want to interact with community. They want value, to be of value. They want reciprocal relationships. They want occupation, valued occupation, not to be entertained. And people want love. They want life. They want the same thing as everybody else. That is all the way up to 95. No, we didn't have anybody older than 95, so I'm assuming that people when they're 96 don't just tick over and want something different. So it's a very different way of designing. So that's your challenge. Your challenge is to design for this, not for the other. Thank you.
Thank you, Laurie. That was a great presentation, and it was a real, ear opener, I suppose, and starting to think ahead. And I'm sure for all of us it has some relevance. Only on the weekend, I caught up with my father, and Dad's retired probably 3 or 4 years ago, and what you said there about occupation equals community equals value is so important. You know, in Dad's case, he's busier than ever. He's mowing lawns for the recreation club, and he's doing 2 sort of fill-in part-time jobs to help businesses out in the community. But my mind quickly goes and sees Dad when he becomes has a need for higher level care and that sort of stuff, and starting to think how he can keep himself valued is a real challenge. As his mother used to say, I don't want to go to an aged care, only old people go there. And as Peter said, she was saying that at 90 or 92 as well. So there's some really pertinent points. So really a great presentation. So I'm sure there's lots of questions out there that some people would like to step up and ask of Laurie. So is anybody hot to trot?
The previous slide, Laurie?
Maybe.
And do you mind if I take a photo with it?
Yeah, sure.
I thought that really summed it up.
While you're doing that, can
Yeah.
Laurie, thank you very much for your presentation. What I've found today is it's more than a presentation, there's a message that you've put out that has been absolutely incredible. But I think you indicated at the beginning that you're in a retirement, that you live in a retirement. No, you don't. You were just putting your hand up.
I was just putting my hand up. No,
Okay.
no, I have no intention of living in a retirement village.
But what would be the trigger for you? Of the message that you've given, if there was a perfectly designed village, what would that picture look like for you?
That's a really great question. I come from a really small town in West Virginia, and that small town has it's big now, it's grown, it's got 4,000 in it. And when I was growing up, as a young person, everyone had a role in that community. And there was interspacing of different people living in different places. So you had older people living next door to younger people and so forth. And I actually didn't know there was such a thing as an old person until I came to Australia, because I didn't know that old people, and I didn't know that old people were burdens until I started doing some research. Because in a smaller community like that I grew up in, that everyone had a role, everyone had value, and everyone was needed. Even the guy that my next door neighbor, as he was dying from cancer, he was our audience, and he actually provided a whole lot of stuff to us children as up into death. And so I think for me, it's around how do we build communities that have those reciprocal relationships. We have a townhouse up in Maroochydore, and there's 15 in it, and it's everyone of different ages, and so there's different roles that people play within that little community. We're not all best friends, but we all have different roles and different things. And so it's about how do you create and sustain those relationships even as people grow older and are towards the end of life. Because I don't think you lose value up until you lose it the moment you take your last breath.
Yeah.
And even then you probably don't lose it because of the value that you've taken on throughout your life. But it's how do we create those relationships and sustain them and design, and I know there's some good designers out here. And if they actually put their mind to it, could change that and design up something really different.
And take out the stigma that there is at the moment.
That's right. I mean, for starters, if we can't change the retirement villages, for starters, just tear down the walls.
Yeah.
Just tear down the walls. Let community come in, so that it passes through.
Right. Great, thank you. Any other questions? Hand over to Russell.
Peter, where you go?
So, those villages where they have a caveat, you have to be over 65 to even buy a unit. You don't even own it, you're basically leasing it until you die. You can't pass it on to your children. You're saying that it sounds like you would need to make it open to investors, that you can have a whole range of community in those spaces. That's what it sounds like.
I'm absolutely suggesting we'd have to have, not only do we need to have new design for the actual physical design, I think we need to have new business models. Absolutely. Absolutely new business models. And there's some great minds that can think about new business models, new ways of shaking up the whole thing. Absolutely.
Where you go, Ben? Ken?
I just want to ask, like the research you've done, is it all on Caucasians? Is there any Asian, elderly, Indians, different from different ethnic backgrounds? Because I'm from an Asian background, and the way our elders view retirement is different.
It is very different. In fact, I'm going to China on Thursday, and we're going to be talking a little bit about that. It is quite different. I think China at the moment really needs to consider, if they're going to start pulling their elders out of community and in families and put them in retirement villages, of what that will do to society. Really, really need to think about that. But in this group, there were people there were some Asians, but I can't tell you the percentage. So I don't.
Your research, does it apply to like healthy couples who are still together? How about like single ones? Like
We had,
one has passed away. Do they think
yep,
differently?
we had the perfect sample. Half of them were in couples, half of them were in singles, half of them were males, females. We had we had the whole lot. So there was quite a few people who were either single or had been single all their life. There was others that had been widowed. There was others that were divorced. There was the whole. It was like the perfect sample.
So Ken, if I may, could you identify or just tell us maybe 3 things that you'd see different from an Asian experience to our local experience?
Kind of Asian background, yes. The main difference is our parents will feel that they want to do all of this with their children. We highly value like the generation. Like my mom, she'll want to do all this with me or with my grandchildren, and not just move somewhere 50 kilometers out and be up by herself. So this is not very acceptable. Still in our Asian culture.
And that's not a model that's here at the moment.
No, that's why we don't have this in Asia. Because to us, this filial piety, if you send your parents to this, you're probably pushing them to their death door.
Yeah.
Like you don't want them anymore. What we can accept is they'll live with you. They'll go out every day to do this, but they'll come home and sleep with you at night. Yeah, they won't spend the night without their children. That's the Asian thinking. Yeah.
Thank you.
And also, I want to say like in Asia, about speak most, we're not really tech savvy, So I don't know how this. I don't just like background, because Asian background, we work on every all their life. Like my parents, they don't really know how to enjoy life when it's time for them to enjoy. But coming from Caucasian background, there's this work-life balance. Work-life balance was never the thing. It's only my generation. There's only work. So if you do have a model of talking about work-life balance, you can create all these activities. I'm pretty sure for Asian elderly, don't know how to, because they have no hobbies. Never had hobbies. All they know was to work.
Exactly, and that's why occupation is even more important for them.
Yeah.
Absolutely, it's to maintain some sense of working and some sense of doing and being productive. Absolutely, I agree with that.
Very much so. Anybody else like to ask some final questions before we draw a close? Thanks, Jim.
Hi, Laurie. I'm just wondering if your data includes the First Nation people as in the Indigenous people in Australia?
Unfortunately, no. We weren't able to include them. We didn't exclude them. It was more that through the sampling and through the advertising, none of them actually came a part of that. But and I think that's an area that absolutely needs a bit more of attention. But yeah, so they weren't excluded, but they weren't. None of them. In saying that, none of them identified as Indigenous or First Nation, which is a weakness.
Any other questions? Last call. All right. Well, so I might just share a couple of insights, I suppose, that really provide a bit of linkage between myself and had the opportunity to be at the World Hospital Congress only recently, and there were a couple of things that came out there that really ties in well, and I think the sense that we assume that all our people moving into retirement and aged care living are like-minded people. You know, they said one of the most common complaints about aged care is you put me next to somebody that I don't even like, and I might actually hate them. You just assume that we'll get on well together. That's really stark. And yeah, I mean, the resort style living, I mean, one of the guys spoke up and said, look, I've lived in a CBD all my life. The last thing I want to do is to go to a resort style, retirement living in the suburbs. That's not what I've lived my whole life in. He clearly wants to continue that lifestyle. So, and yeah, previously, there was a sense that aged care is almost extricated from society, whereas we've got to get ways to integrate that through society. And I know my mother-in-law particularly, the connection with older people, with younger children, particularly keeps older people much more interested and engaged. And it's really important for our younger generations as well to keep that. So I'm sure as a group of principally architects, I suppose, that lead the foray into how we design, and the aged care providers here, there's lots and lots of challenges there. And then I suppose other industries or disciplines support that by way of what, say, Peter does in certification, or what we do as design engineers, really create some big challenges for us. But I think today, with sharing what Laurie has given us today, it really does make us sort of take a bit of a step back and actually think about what it is that we're actually doing on our way through. So yeah, learning more about what Australia's future seniors want, particularly in relation to their future living needs and aspirations, is something that I'm sure interests all of us in what we do. We've got a very important role to play as designers and providers in the industry that we work in, and it certainly needs our effort to make sure that we satisfy the needs for our seniors in the future. No doubt for all of us here today, at some point we'll find ourselves moving into retirement. There's no doubt about that. Certainly as we age, and possibly for some of us leading into aged care living. So that's a real challenge. And as the group that's here today, we've really got a vested interest in that. So I appeal to everybody today, let's give this a good shot so that we're all happier as we age. But yeah, so to close out, please join me in a round of hearty applause for Laurie, in appreciation of the... I think everybody agreed it's been a really great presentation. I must admit, I was actually staggered by the look of attention and quiet in the room. You got everybody's attention, so it really struck a chord. And especially in just recognition of the time you've given us to present today, we feel really quite treasured in that regard. So yeah, so if anybody would like to finish up with breakfast and that sort of thing, please do so. Have the opportunity to mingle and talk to people you do know and create new relationships as well. I'd like to thank Thomson Adset for initiating the FODI initiative and giving us the opportunity to host today's event, which I'm sure everybody would agree has been really, really great. So, Kath, well done for all the work that you've done in getting us here today, and Professor Laurie, thank you so much. It's been great. And I'd just like to final thank you to everybody who's attended today. It's been an absolutely incredible attendance, and thank you for that. And let's go and see what we can do and make a difference in our worlds. Thank you. Have a great day.